Good morning. Finally have my heater out in the garage. It's like 30 whatever degrees outside and I'm nice and toasty in here now. Drinking my coffee. And I want to talk about Lightroom presets. Specifically the ones you can buy from other people. And why I don't think you should buy them. And within that discussion, we're going to get into white balance and auto ISO. So I have some notes that I'm probably not going to look at that much, but hopefully I don't jump around too much, so bear with me. Why I think you shouldn't buy Lightroom presets from somebody else. Tons of reasons. And they all go into the shit we have to change in our cameras when we take photos. Okay, but we'll first talk about the camera body and lens itself. Okay, when somebody has built a preset, you know, this amazing photographer that gets these outstanding photos, right? And he's like, I'm gonna sell you my presets. Here's all of my photos that I made with these 5 different presets that I want to sell you for 50 bucks or 10 bucks or 100 bucks, whatever. And you too can get these amazing images by buying my presets. Not really. Let's talk about it. So again, starting with the body and lens. All right. Their body and lens isn't your body and lens, unless it is. You know, unless you're buying presets from somebody with your exact body and lens. All right. Every lens, as I've discussed before, has its own sweet spot for sharpness, dependent upon aperture and focal length. So, lens A may be the best at, you know, f4 at 70 millimeters, right? And lens B might be the best at f8 at whatever for sharpness. So if the person you're buying the preset from has a completely different lens, whatever sharpness they have on their preset might not work the best for you. When we talk about the camera body, you know, that's going to go into ISO, all right? And I didn't want to get into ISO this soon, but we're talking about the body, so let's quickly touch on it. If at ISO, we'll say 800 on your body, you know, we'll take my Canon 5D, all right? This thing is old. It's like a 10-year-old body. It doesn't even have auto ISO, which we'll get into later. So 800 is the highest I'll go on it. And even then, I mean, I'm happy with it, but some people wouldn't be. So on a brand new 5D Mark III, ISO 800 won't be as noisy as on my first generation of the body. So again, there's that difference. And with these presets, the thing you need to understand is they're not relative. You know, each of these sliders that are getting changed when you apply the preset, they're not relative to what you already have in the raw image. They just make them whatever it is. So let's talk about that. So the difference between shooting a photo outside and inside as it pertains to white balance, right? So outside, we'll say it's a bright sunny day. Your white balance, your temperature is going to be X to make it properly, all the colors perfect, everything good. Inside, under fluorescent lights, your white balance, your temperature is going to be Y. So we'll say, I could be off on my numbers here, I don't have Lightroom up, I don't have this shit memorized, but we'll say 5,000 and 3,000 or whatever it is, right? The preset that you load doesn't give a shit. It's not relative. It's not going to raise it by 200 degrees or lower it by 200. It's just going to make it what it makes it. So it's going to be completely different whether the shot was done outside or inside, because those presets are not relative. It's also going to be different whether the person built the preset for shooting RAW or JPEG and you shoot the other. Much different. Some lenses have better contrast than others. So if you don't have as good a contrast, whatever they have set for their contrast could be different. And I can go into each and every little thing, but hopefully you're getting my point here. I'm already, over 5 minutes into this video. Hopefully you're getting my point, that even when you buy a preset, you're still going to need to go back and check every freaking slider. All of them. If you don't, you're not doing your photo justice. So, what does that mean? Well, that means you should probably build your own. I'm not going through 1,000 photos a day, okay? I don't have that workload. So I don't know what it's like for somebody that does, and somebody that wants that preset to make the workflow go faster. I get it. I totally understand. But why not build some basic presets of your own? Lightroom 5 makes it pretty easy to do. I can't see the need to buy somebody else's when you can do it yourself. When you can get on a photography forum or board and people who share presets and give you a better understanding of what each of those sliders do to help you make an informed decision of what you need to do for your photography. That's what you should be doing. You should be striving to be better, like I am. I mean, fuck, I want to be so much better than I am. And I'm constantly working on that. I'm constantly doing research and studying and taking photos. I just took a bunch of photos inside at different white balances to determine what each of my bodies did. And boy, was I surprised when I found that the difference between auto and going with the actual fluorescent was still different from each other in Lightroom. Kind of weird, right? They were close, but still different. I couldn't get auto to match any of the manual choices in any environment that I chose. So kind of weird. So let's get into ISO and auto ISO and why I'm not the biggest fan, but sometimes I'll still use it. So auto ISO wants to expose for daylight. It wants to make everything fucking bright ass daylight, good exposure, right? That's what auto ISO wants to do. We already talked about how different camera bodies will have different noise levels at different ISOs, but we won't even discuss that here. We'll just say auto ISO wants to expose for bright ass daylight. It doesn't care. It doesn't care if the sun's setting. It doesn't care if the sun's rising. It doesn't care if you're looking in the shade. It doesn't give a crap. It's going to expose for bright ass daylight. And that's why you should not be using auto ISO if you have time to compose your picture. If you have time to set up, a few seconds or a minute or however long it takes you to set up for a shot, if you have that time, take the time to figure out what ISO you need. Now, I'm not good enough to walk into a room and say, this is the ISO I need. I mean, I kind of have an idea, but I don't know the exact ISO I need, especially if I'm outside. If I'm outside, like I was in the Great Dismal Swamp the other day, right? And it's a road that I'm walking down for like fucking 6 miles, no lie. And it's got deep, thick forest on either side, tall ash trees, and the sun's rising from my right. So on the left, as the sun was still really low, I'm getting a little bit of light, but on the right, it's dark as fuck. So, fuck. I mean, I was like, oh, maybe 400 on my left, maybe 800, not really sure. On my right, fuck it, I'm screwed. I might have to go to the max, it's gonna look like shit. I kind of knew that. But I still checked. People make fun of people, they call it chimping or some crap. Take a picture, look at it, take a picture, look. Fuck that, I'll do it. I don't give a shit. Especially if I'm taking a photo I'm getting paid for. I owe it to my customer to ensure that I have it correct. There's nothing wrong with that. Hopefully someday I'll get to the point where I know that's the ISO I need. Again, that's going to be camera body dependent. Here's where auto ISO is great. That same environment, right? Where now the sun's getting a little bit higher, so now it's bright as fuck over here. Still shady, way shady on the right. I want to take a picture of a bird I see flying around. Well, the bird might jump from side to side, or I might see something on this side, and then I'm walking further, and then I'm going to take a picture on this side. If I don't have it in auto ISO, it's going to be fucking blown out on the left if I had my ISO set for the right. So in that case, auto ISO is better than nothing, right? It's better than blowing out my picture or having it dark as fuck. Way better. Is it going to be right? No. I'm still going to have to adjust my exposure and my contrast. But I will still have that information there to be able to do it. Whereas if I'm just completely off on my ISO by that much, in that much of a differing environment, I'm screwed. I'm just going to lose all that info if I don't have it in auto. The other thing is, when you're doing portraits, if you're doing spot metering, which you should be for portraits, because spot metering is what you want to use to get that skin, right? Auto ISO is just going to probably screw you. Because it's not going to give a shit. It's still going to expose, and it's probably going to, in my opinion, blow everything out. So you really want to be careful. If you're doing portraiture, you better not be in auto ISO. You have the time. Just my thoughts on the subject. I can't see paying money to somebody else for a Lightroom preset. You know, it's not like you're just taking a JPEG from your camera and you're uploading it to Instagram and you're using one of their filters. If you're doing that, you're probably not watching this video. So if you are taking the time, you know, you have the gear, you're out there taking photos, and you want your photos to look the best, don't just buy somebody else's that you're going to have to change anyway. Take the time and do it yourself. Peace.